Hey everyone, we've got some news. Europe has just announced that in 2025, the continent will have no more water left. Now, I know you must be thinking it's sensationalism. It can't possibly be true. Well, you'd be wrong. According to scientists and experts, this is not an exaggeration at all. But how soon will this happen? In a month, a year, a decade? This is what we'll discuss today. The European Commission made an announcement. It was covered by major newspapers like The Guardian, but the gravity of the situation seems to have been lost on most people. If you read the article, you'll find out that one of the graphs used by the Commission showed that within 3 decades, so by 2050, the amount of renewable freshwater available to Europeans could fall by 20%. And it doesn't stop there. Another graph showed that water scarcity could affect 65% of Europeans within the next 30 years. It also said that by 2040, almost half of the population would likely face water stress. Yet another graph showed that water withdrawals for human use will increase by 50% between now and 2050. But the worst part is that it's not even limited to the future. The report also mentions the present, saying that already 11 countries are facing water shortages. So the question is, which countries are these? Well, a recent study found that Italy and France were the first countries to hit the day zero in Europe. Day zero being the day when the taps run dry and your glass becomes empty forever. Scientists say that France and Italy faced their worst drought ever this summer, with the hot and dry weather drying up lakes, rivers, and reservoirs. It all started in January, when temperatures remained higher than average. Then came the spring, which brought little or no rain to much of the region. The hot weather continued into June, July, and August, creating the perfect condition for a long-lasting drought. Because of this, France's water levels fell drastically. According to the French National Water Agency, the country's biggest reservoir, Lake Saône, has shrunk to just 37% of its capacity. Its second largest reservoir, Lake Drought, is only 31% full. But France isn't alone. Italian lakes Garda, Maggiore, and Cum are extremely low levels. On Lake Garda, the water level is almost 1.5 meters below the average. Similar conditions are prevailing in other parts of Europe as well. Spain and Portugal are suffering through their worst drought in 1,200 years. Germany is suffering through its worst drought in 50 years. And England is suffering through its worst drought in 500 years. But wait, it gets worse. Experts have warned that the Rhine River may dry up by the end of August. A report published by Dutch experts says that if there is no rain in the next 2 weeks, the river will likely be reduced to a trickle by the end of the month, which will make it impossible for ships to pass through. The river is already so low that barges are unable to navigate parts of it. As a result, transport costs are rising. Chemical companies are halting production. The situation is so bad that even the German government has had to step in. They're offering aid worth 50 million euros to mitigate the damage caused by the dwindling water levels. Now, you might wonder, rivers dry up every summer. That's normal, right? No, it's not. The Rhine River has never dried up in modern history. In fact, it has always overflowed in the summers. Even during World War II, when the entire Western Front was burnt to the ground, the Rhine didn't dry up. But today, it's drying up because of climate change. Scientists say that due to global warming, rainfalls have become erratic and unpredictable. Summers are hotter and drier, and winters are warmer and wetter. This is why we're having floods in one place and drought in others. But while scientists are predicting that the Rhine could dry up in 2 weeks, reports say it's already dry. Yes, the Rhine River has already dried up in certain sections in Germany. This 350-mile stretch of river that passes through Karlsruhe has completely dried up. Locals are shocked and scared because they've never seen anything like this before. And the scary thing is that the same fate awaits the rest of the river. Scientists say that if there's no rain in the next few days, the entire Rhine could dry up, which will cripple industry in Western Europe. You see, the Rhine is Europe's busiest waterway. It carries around 250 million tons of goods every year. A recent study says that if the river dries up, it could disrupt the supply chain and raise prices across Europe. So given that Europe is already facing energy, food, and economic crises, a water crisis will be the last thing it needs. But then again, it's not an apocalypse scenario either. The Rhine River isn't going to dry up forever. Once it rains, it will flow again. But what if that rain never comes? What if the drought continues? This is something that experts have failed to consider. But according to our estimates, things could get really bad in Europe by 2025. And let me tell you why. According to scientists, in the past, mega droughts occurred once in 200 years. But after global warming kicked in, their frequency increased. Now mega droughts strike once in 80 years. Some experts believe that the mega drought gripping Europe today will persist until October, which means that by 2025, the continent will experience another drought, which will be worse than the one we're seeing today. But that's not even the worst news. Scientists have found that the groundwater reserves in Europe are almost depleted. Yes, the aquifers under the ground are almost gone. This has happened because Europe has been pumping water from them for decades now. Groundwater reserves have been used to water crops, fill rivers, and supply drinking water. But there has been little effort to replenish them. In the Netherlands, 70% of the underground water is being pumped out faster than it can recharge. In Germany, groundwater levels are 10 meters lower than usual. In France, a quarter of the aquifers are critically depleted. And in the UK, the chalk aquifers are almost bone dry. Experts have warned that at this rate, the underground water reserves will be gone in a few decades. And considering that 50% of Europe's drinking water comes from underground, this could mean that by 2025, Europe could start facing permanent water shortages. Another disturbing prediction comes from Hans van Epperen, a professor at Utrecht University. He says that after 2025, mega droughts will become a yearly occurrence in Europe. This means that Europe will suffer through droughts every single year. And here's where things start getting crazy. Experts believe that in such circumstances, countries will start fighting over water. Right now, the EU is trying to prevent that by building infrastructure to divert water from water-rich regions to water-poor regions. However, this project will take many years to complete. So in the meantime, countries will likely start stealing water from each other, just like Egypt, Turkey, and Ethiopia are fighting over the Nile River. Professor van Epperen believes that countries will go to such lengths to secure their water supplies. But then again, if countries start stealing water, won't that further deplete their reserves? Yes, it will. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Let's not forget that water isn't the lifeline of our planet. It's the lifeline of life itself. It's water that grows food, makes energy, keeps industries running, and allows our bodies to function. Without it, our world will grind to a halt. But wait, it gets worse. You see, Europe is heavily dependent on agriculture from other countries to feed its population. This includes North Africa and South Asia, which are also suffering through water shortages. Pakistan's water reservoirs are at critical levels. India's groundwater reserves are almost depleted. And in Turkey, farmers are protesting against water cuts. So where will Europe get its food from in 2026 when every country is suffering through a water crisis? And don't think that you'll be safe even in your own homes. Already, 1 in 3 Europeans are facing water cuts. By 2026, this number could increase to 2 in 3. Your drinking water could also become unsafe. Experts believe that as water levels drop, pollutants will contaminate the groundwater. Sewage systems could break down. And since there will be no water left to dilute contaminants, drinking water could become unsafe. But while all this sounds scary, there's still hope. Experts say that new technologies could save us in time. Desalination plants could provide us with cheap and clean drinking water. Water from the sea could be used for farming. And advanced irrigation techniques could ensure that we waste less water. But again, all of this will take time. And by the time we build the necessary infrastructure, we might have already entered the next phase of this crisis. You see, as water levels drop, millions of people will be forced to migrate. And if that happens, we'll face a refugee crisis far worse than the one we saw in 2015. But then again, even if we manage to avoid all these disasters, one question still remains: is climate change making this crisis irreversible? After all, the root cause of this crisis is global warming. If global warming isn't stopped, the Earth's water cycle will continue to be disrupted, leading to perpetual droughts and floods. However, despite all these warnings, experts are hiding one very important fact from us. That fact is that we have enough water on our planet to sustain ourselves. The real problem is that 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in salty water. Only 3% of the Earth's water is drinkable, and 97% of that 3% belongs to just 12 countries. So our planet has enough water to go around. The problem is that a few countries have hoarded most of it. Just look at the per capita water availability. While Americans get 1,540 cubic meters of water every year, Indians get just 1,486 cubic meters. In Saudi Arabia, the figure is just 64 cubic meters. Does this disparity seem fair? No, it isn't. So to conclude, let me ask you a question. Should the developed countries that have caused climate change be held responsible for this crisis? Or should the developing countries that have contributed the least to global warming be blamed for hoarding water resources? Let us know in the comments.